Hi, my name is Sierra Ozaka, and I will be presenting my bioethics project on the film Gattaca. Vincent is a child born of love, or a faith child, firstborn of his parents. In this futuristic timeline, this is unnatural. Upon birth, all children's DNA is screened with probabilities given for various diseases, conditions, deficiencies, and predicted expiration dates. He is predicted to have a 99% probability of having a heart condition and an expiration date of 30.2 years. His parents opt to have a second child, the now natural way, and go to the geneticist's office to pick out which pre-screened embryo they would like to have, with all major deficits removed for them automatically. They are reassured that it's still their combined DNA, just the best of both of them. This sets the stage for the rest of the movie. Vincent aspires to go into space, but in these times, high-level jobs are only given to those that are products of eugenics. He is considered an invalid and will forever be relegated to a maintenance-level job, even though he has the brains and motivation to compete with the valids. In order to try to beat the system, he acquires the identity of a valid named Jerome, who was injured in an accident while trying to commit suicide, and would never fulfill his genetic potential. They agree that Vincent can make a name for Jerome, and Vincent can accomplish his lifelong dream under Jerome's name and DNA. Vincent, under the guise of Jerome, works for Gattaca and undergoes various random blood, urine, hair, and skin tests, and uses Jerome's, now going by his middle name Eugene's, samples to get around these tests. Vincent is methodical in scrubbing his skin to slough off excess skin cells and loose hairs, as well as shaving, and trimming his nails daily to minimize any chance of leaving trace amounts of DNA that would cause him to lose his position. There is a murder at Gattaca, however, and the investigation finds Vincent's eyelash, which leads to a search for him as the primary suspect. The main investigator turns out to be Vincent's brother, but neither brother recognizes the other until the very end of the movie. In the end, with some help, Vincent accomplishes his goal of getting to space, and the actual murderer is discovered. Eugene creates enough DNA samples for Vincent to live his life as Jerome, and then commits suicide feeling unfulfilled, stuck within the walls of his home. The overarching theme in this film is on the topic of eugenics. Eugenics is the biological improvement to the human race by the alteration or manipulation of people's genes, usually through genetic engineering or selection when using in vitro fertilization. In this film, the new natural form of conception is through in vitro selection and genetic manipulation of the embryos, and then the parents pick out which embryo they want based on specific traits. All diseases and other negative traits are automatically removed from all embryos offered to the parents. This begs the question of when does an embryo become a person, because ethically, under the Hippocratic Oath, all of these embryos should be protected by physicians. What happens to all of these unselected embryos in this scenario? Another question is of the autonomy of the embryos. The children that are products of eugenics may not actually want the specified traits, and the invalids may wish that they had their genes edited, as Vincent does. Would these children still be themselves if they had or had not been the product of eugenics? What makes a person a person? Earlier in class, when we covered this topic, we read an article from Ronald Green entitled, "Human Genetic Engineering Should Be Allowed," which stated, quote, "Many critics fear that reproductive genetics will widen our social divisions as the affluent buy more competitive abilities for their offspring. Will we eventually see speciation, the emergence of two or more human populations so different that they no longer even breed with one another?" End quote. As I will discuss next, this very point is one of the themes in Gattaca. Genealism, as the film calls it, is discrimination based on whether or not a person is the product of genetic manipulation. This genetic discrimination is a futuristic concept at this point, but as science progresses, becomes more and more of a reality to be warned of. In Gattaca, invalids have limitations imposed upon them because they have not been genetically engineered to have higher performance levels or healthier bodies, making them the weaker humans. As far as careers go, this form of discrimination is illegal in the film, but employers get around it by gathering cells from a handshake, from the spit from the sealed application envelope, or from a urine test for drugs that happens to then be screened for genetics. Employers want the best employees for the job, and so they check the candidate's DNA to find out if they are predisposed to career detriments or to career skills. Thus, the valids get the best paying and most rewarding jobs, such as being an astronaut, while the invalids get the menial jobs, such as working in maintenance. This is a world where if you are an invalid, it doesn't matter how hard you try at something, you will get left behind. And if you are a valid, you don't even need to interview. You basically just get picked on DNA alone. Identity is what makes a person a unique individual. What components actually make up a person have been debated and could include physical, mental, spiritual, and genetic traits, and possibly others like memories, time, and location. In this film, there's a dichotomy between which characteristics make up a person. Is it their blood or genes that determines who you are? Or is it your personal goals, motivation, and drive that determines who you are? The workforce discrimination described earlier implies that this culture sees genetics as the primary determiner of who you are, leaving no room to escape this box in which society places the invalids. But then you have Vincent as the example, proving that despite his genetics, he was able to accomplish what only valids were supposed to be able to do, showing that his own personal skills and hard work could take him where his genes could not. Interestingly, Vincent and Eugene contract to share the identity of Jerome, with Eugene providing the genetics and Vincent providing the ambition. As the movie progresses, it's interesting to see the lines blur between these two individuals as together they create Jerome, the perfect combination of the two of them. So are there in fact 3 characters in this film with distinct identities? Vincent, the invalid, with dreams and a drive but destined to sweep floors. Eugene, a perfect genetic specimen, suicidal and paralyzed from succumbing to the pressures of being perfect. And Jerome, survivor of horrific surgeries to become a genetic masterpiece capable of accomplishing anything, and with the boldness and motivation to do whatever it takes to accomplish his goal, and eventually succeeding. As a sort of caveat to this theme, it was also interesting to look at the autonomy involved in their contract of sharing the identity of Jerome. They are able to conduct this contract because they find a man that works on the black market that pairs people to share an identity. This implies that a contract of this nature is illegal, but it seems as though it shouldn't be, since this is not a case of stolen identity, but rather an agreed-upon sharing. If the government were respecting their wishes, they should have been allowed to make this agreement. However, the other ethical debate would be who gets government benefits, since the government is told that there is only one person, but in reality there are 2, so there would be the question of justice regarding fair allocation of government resources. This film is important in the ongoing discussion of bioethics because it acts as a warning to our society as we continue to plow ahead with research in the area of eugenics. With technology such as CRISPR that can actually edit genes, as is in Gattaca, the ideas and the concepts of this film are not far off from our current reality and are getting closer and closer to being real. CRISPR cannot exactly edit genes to the extent that Gattaca portrays, but it can splice genes to rid the body of thalassemia, a blood disease similar to sickle cell anemia. When this film was made, this was not anywhere near possible, but here we are in our present day, and all the closer to actually changing genes to be rid of at least one disease, but also opening up the door that leads to the world of Gattaca. This film presents dangers to our future, and we should take heed, noting the pitfalls of genetic discrimination and identity. If we start manipulating DNA, will our children still become who they originally were to become, since they no longer have those struggles to overcome? Some say we are the product of our struggles. Can they get the job they actually want someday? What if they are engineered to become an astronaut, but they want to be a swimmer? They could be limited to a world where only people designed with webbed feet can swim competitively. I found Gattaca to be a highly interesting film for this topic, and would certainly recommend it to others. Some artistic and subtle facts about the movie and its themes that I found intriguing were that the title is actually completely made up of the base pair letters designated for the building blocks of DNA: G, C, T, and A. Also, the spiral staircase in Jerome's home can be symbolic of a double helix and interpreted as an analogy to how those with the best genes can rise to the top, while those without are stuck on the bottom floor. But interestingly, this is also analogous to the overcoming of this cultural norm, since Vincent is the one that can climb the stairs, while Eugene is the one stuck on the first floor. Here are my references. Thanks for watching.